Well, here we are. Hello, and welcome. Let me just double check here, make sure I got the audio working. Yeah, the audio is working. It wasn't working a minute ago because I forgot to push my button because Mr. Producer was pushing my buttons earlier. And Mr. Producer, I look like I need a blood transfusion on this screen here. I really do. You guys should see it. It's like we'll have to turn this down a little bit because it looks like I'm not kidding. But if I turn like this, there we go. That's a little bit better. What do you think, Mr. Producer? Oh, there we go. Well, no. It's funny because when you have two different computers, one computer likes this, one computer likes that. There we go. That looks all right. All right. Okay. I think we're good. Yeah, it looks like I needed the blood transfusion. It was like I was so pale. Mr. Producer, let me know if you like that. Okay. All right. Good. All right. That's good. So welcome, everybody. Happy Friday to you guys. I tell you what, it is Friday. It is Friday, and we're going to have a chill out time on this beautiful Friday. I tell you what, guys, it's flying by. Before you know it, we're going to be talking about Krampus, because we do that, by the way. We have our yearly Krampus conversation, but let's get into the business. The mothership is coming. The business aspect of things. Oh, look at that. Can you imagine, Mr. Producer? The trolls have left. We had nearly 300 people in the chat room. I put sub chat on, zoom, it drops because the trolls can't chat. Oh, I'm so sorry. It breaks my heart. Anyway, I need artificial tears. Really do. I'm sensitive. Okay. Guys, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do us a favor, and I want you to make sure you go to the sponsor's website, KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. It's very important, KGRADB.com. And yep, got it. But before we do that, Mr. Producer is going to play a little clip for all of you wonderful people watching on this other social media platform. So, Mr. Producer, roll that fine footage.
Fans of Bishop James Long, the renowned exorcist and paranormal expert on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Now you can carry his wisdom with you. Our Bishop James Long collection features blessed apparel such as St. Benedict hats and tees, as well as home items to protect and inspire. Elevate your spiritual journey. Go to kgradb.com/shop and discover the Bishop James Long merch today.
There we go. Yeah, the Bishop James Long merch. Anyway, guys, make sure you go to KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Click on the shop link, and then you'll see my name. Click my name, Bishop James Long, and I want you to do me a favor and purchase all the products. Just go ahead and purchase all of them. Hey, Christmas is right around the corner. I mean, it'll be here before you know it. I'm serious. It's right here. But nonetheless, please understand that 100% of the profits that would go to me, as a community, we are donating 100% of that, the profits to our friends, the MKS Kids Foundation. It's an orphanage. It's in Uganda. They are a non-profit organization. They are self-funded, and they definitely need our assistance. All right, so make sure you head on over yonder, kgradb.com. Please make sure you go there. That's important. Not only that, but you're also helping the sponsors, which is the KGRADB Radio, because they're the ones that produce all the shows. You know, I use their platform to go live everywhere. So when I'm going live with you guys on night prayer, Bible study, whatever it might be, I'm using their platform. So yeah, let's make sure that we also, when you're helping, the KGRADB Radio family, you're helping also the Kids Foundation too. Okay, if you want to go to my website, you certainly can, bishopjameslong.com, bishopjameslong.com. By the way, I have a brand new book out, and it is Bishop Long's Paranormal Investigator Manual. It's a book. It's over 200 pages. A lot of work went into this book. So what you need to do is go to bishopjameslong.com, scroll down, and you will see where it says the new book. Just scroll down. It's right underneath my music. You'll see it there. And purchase the book. By the way, 100% of the profits, 100%, So for all those trolls out there saying, I knew you do this for money, shut up. Anyway, 100% of the profits is going to the MKS Kids Foundation. Now, it's my book, so I should have the right to reap the rewards of putting the book together. It's mine. I have copyright. I own it. So therefore, I should be able to charge and make money. Most people do. But I hit my head a lot while I was playing football. And that explains why I just say, well, let's just give it to the MKS Kids Foundation. It's a great foundation. I love the foundation. I'm very passionate about it. And it's my way of helping. I'm limited in funds like most of you guys. And when I can use my gifts and talents to help children who otherwise would go to bed hungry or not have no possibility of education or a roof over their head, if I can play a part in that, then by God, I'm going to do that. And it gives me meaning. When life becomes so static at times, it gives me hope, knowing that my little act of kindness and your act of kindness is making a difference in a child's life. And it doesn't matter if we don't know these kids. It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is that we are lending a hand, and we are making a difference in these kids' lives. I'll tell you that right now. And the MKS Kids Foundation will tell us right now that we are. Actually, you have to understand, he has, Abraham said he had 30 kids, 32 or 33 kids that they take care of in their orphanage. And someone was asking, why does it cost so much? It doesn't. In order to feed them, to give them clothing, to put them through schooling, and to pay their bills every single month, it's about $600 a month. That is unbelievably cheap and more than fair. More than fair. $600 a month. You ain't getting nothing, no education for $600 here in the United States. But they are taking care of these kids. Yeah, 3 meals a day. They're getting a roof over their head. They're getting food, and they're getting their school paid for. And they're paying for all the utilities for $600 a month. So I think, they know how to stretch a penny, and they're doing a beautiful job with it. So in my opinion, I think they're doing great. Now, if you want to go to the church's website, usocc.org, usocc.org. You're right. You can't. I mean, you can't even live in an apartment for that much. So they pay for kids' foods, 3 meals a day, their education, their clothing, and the utilities, all the expenses that it takes to run this orphanage. So it's not like they're receiving a salary. $600 a month. You're not making millions of dollars. So Abraham, who is he is the director there. And matter of fact, we had him on TikTok yesterday. TikTok, please do better. So TikTok put them on a 2-week penalty, so they can't go live for 2 weeks because of low content. In other words, they don't have a fancy studio. And so they had a 2-week probation, or they got kicked off for 2 weeks. This is how they raise funds for these kids. And what's fascinating to me is that you can have people, I've seen videos or lives where people are laying in bed, you can barely even see them, and they're not penalized. They're just sitting there talking about what they ate for supper. But yet the MKS Kids Foundation, they go live, they dance, they sing, they bring joy to people's life. They talk about the Kids Foundation, and they got 2 weeks penalty for that. Come on, TikTok. So perhaps, yeah, Jenny, we might go live a little bit later after, maybe if they're up. Remember that was 5 o'clock in the morning for him. But if so, I would maybe bring them back on. We did great by helping them give a lot of gifts. That helped them tremendously. As a matter of fact, let me tell you we'll get to the presentation in a moment. But it was so beautiful because last night, after night prayer was over, I had spoken to Abraham, and I said, well, why don't we bring you on as a guest and then tell people about the situation, and then maybe people can donate to you directly to your GoFundMe or to buy the book, and then the 100% of that goes to you. And we raised I think Judy Ann said $1,500 or $2,000 or something like that, close to that. So just yesterday alone. Now, keep in mind the gifts, remember, TikTok takes 70%. So while the gifts are beautiful, they're going to take their chunk of change, but every penny helps. And last night, you guys gifted them so much that that's going to get them over the hump of this 2-week issue. And you guys did this. You guys did this. So I think that's beautiful. So again, that's what you can do to help out. Yep, 70%. But although that's great. That's right. You bought the book. The book is brand new. I just had it. It is up and running. So if you want to if you want to read the book, you got to go bishopjameslong.com. bishopjameslong.com. Scroll down. You'll see the book right there. The brand new book, 100% of the profits. And every single month, I'm going to show you how many books we sold and how much money was sent to them. So you'll see it. I want you to see everything because you need to. Because if you're buying the products, you need to be able to see where your money's going to. Technically, it could go into, normally it goes into the author's pocket. We don't do that here. We want to help this community. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So there we go, guys. The MKS Kids Foundation. And we're making a change. So when you go to bed at night, you can lay your head on the pillow tonight knowing that you made a difference in someone's life. And healthcare. That's right. Mr. Producer reminded me they also take care of their healthcare. So for $600 a month, it's pretty phenomenal. All right, let's get into our Paranormal Friday show, where we dedicate Friday nights at 7 p.m. to scary stories, some fiction, some non-fiction. And as obviously this is the month of Halloween, we get closer and closer to Halloween. We're going to talk a little bit more about some scary topics, as we always do, to get everybody in the spirit of Halloween. Now, eventually, not this week or next week rather, but we're going to talk about the history of Halloween as we get closer to Halloween. And by the way, Mr. Producer, are you going to be here on Halloween night? I'll be here. I mean, again, Mr. Producer, I can push the buttons. If you set it up, I'll push the buttons so you can go and scare the kids with all the candy. But just let me know, because it's pretty interesting. Halloween falls on Friday this year. This year, it is Friday. So that's pretty exciting. I want to remind everybody, don't forget, I will also be at Scarefest. So I will be at Scarefest on the, I think it's the 17th to the 19th, I believe. I think so. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking for that. That's in Lexington, Kentucky. I will give a presentation on demonology. So I'm really looking forward to that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I will be going live often on TikTok during that weekend. And yep, I will be by Annabelle. I'll take the phone by Annabelle and we'll have a little conversation with Annabelle. How's that? We'll do that as well. I'll try to record or go live on TikTok when I give a presentation. I'll try that. We'll see. It just depends. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for your gift. Thank you very much. All right. So we're going to be here for Halloween and hopefully you'll be joining us. Now, let's get into our presentation. Tonight, I want to talk about a topic that has scared a lot of people through the years. A lot. And that is the Amityville Horror House. I don't know what that is, Thor. Annabelle. I'll be seeing Annabelle, but I don't know what Elton is. So the Amityville house, that case is very intriguing. Very intriguing. And I knew Lorraine Warren. I was friends with Lorraine. I did not know her husband. I knew of him, but I never got to meet him. And I had Lorraine on the show once when I talked to her about Amityville. And I'll never forget that she said that there absolutely was something evil in that house, that it terrified her and clergy that they got that they got involved in that it scared him so much that he went into the house and he was going to bless it, and he ran out. He ran out of the house, and he said he would never go back. And I remember that conversation that I had with Lorraine. So she was convinced that place was quite terrifying. All right, let's get into the show. So let's start at the very beginning. Before the house was known as a place of horror. It's a quiet, unassuming street in Amityville. The houses are actually lined up neatly, each with its own story, its own dreams. But behind the white picket fences, behind the curtains, there lurks a darkness that no one could see coming. Because it was a house like any other until that night. And that night that I'm referring to is November 13, 1974. Right now, I don't have that uploaded, Pilar, because I used to, but then I had one of my computers completely crashed. So I'm going to find that interview that I had with Lorraine and then upload that. And I'll probably play a couple of sound bites this month for a show that I'm planning on later on. So November 13th, 1974. The house was built in 1927. It's a modest structure. Thank you. A modest structure. It was 2 stories, white siding, small porch. It looked harmless, inviting even. But that night, November 13, 1974, everything changed. Ronald DeFeo Jr., he was a troubled young man, and he was awake that night. His mind was frayed. His life was unraveling. He had a long history of substance abuse, petty crimes, escalating violence. So I have to be careful. It's obviously TikTok rules and regulations, but he entered his family's home and he had a weapon. He had purchased it legally just days before. And he said at one time, he had mentioned that I knew I had to do it. I felt like I was losing my mind, he said. They weren't going to stop me. So he moved through the house, his steps muffled on the old wooden floors. And one bang and then another, and the house was engulfed in chaos of violence. And in the darkness, the house held its breath. I mean, when police arrived hours later, they found a scene so gruesome, so incomprehensible, it defied belief. A detective said, and this is what he said it was like a slaughterhouse. There's blood everywhere. The walls, they're covered in it. It's like the house itself is bleeding. 6 bodies, each one terrible victim. They lay sprawled across the house. Louis DeFeo, the father, was unalived, and the mother found slumped in her chair, her face frozen in terror. The children, Mark, John, Allison, and Mark, all unalived in their sleep. There was a eyewitness in that area who told the media, quote, "I remember seeing the bodies, the blood so much. It was like a massacre. I'll never forget the look in Luis's eyes, like he knew he was going to pass." Ronald DeFeo was caught at the scene, trembling, incoherent, clutching this weapon. And he said he didn't remember anything. He just don't remember, he said. Something made him do it. So he was arrested, confessed, sentenced to life in prison. But the house was never just a home anymore. It had become something else, even something like alive, as some people would describe it. So after this terrible incident, and it was, the house remained vacant for months, but it was not silent. And I think that's what gets into the conversation and makes it even more interesting. One of the neighbors said you could just feel it, like the house was waiting for someone. The person said I'd walk past, and sometimes she said, I swear I saw shadows moving behind the curtains, even in broad daylight. So the house reputation as a place of evil, it grew. Tales of strange phenomena spread, not just fear, but a sense that the house itself was cursed. So locals began to speak of the house with hushed voices. One resident stated it was like the walls are alive. They said they saw lights flicker, shadows dance across the windows, and sometimes they hear strange noises, whispers. Some claim to see the flickering lights late at night, glowing with an unnatural hue, and the house's windows seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Then came reports of inexplicable phenomena, as if that wasn't enough. Furniture rocking on its own. Neighbors and other people who are walking past it would hear doors slamming shut when there was no one in there. Some people said there were cold spots so intense outside that it made them giving them a chill. There was one witness that said one night they were walking past the house when they saw something at the window, something they can't explain. And they said it looked like a shadow, huge and twisted with glowing eyes. They claimed it stared at them and they froze. People felt it. The unseen malevolence that seemed to seep out of every crack and every crevice of that house. So in the months that followed, the stories grew more intense. So residents reported hearing footsteps outside, going in and out of the house. Furniture, they claimed they could hear furniture being tossed around. And the air grew thick, like an oppressive feeling around the home, like the house was watching or waiting. Hang on to your questions. So here's the deal with the questions. I'll get to them, I promise them. But because I do a lecture, let me finish this lecture and then we'll get to your questions, I promise. So the house, and by the way, when I do a lecture, this has 93 pages. And I won't get to all 93 pages, but this is what I put together every single Friday when I do a presentation. I don't believe in just going on the camera and just talking about something that doesn't make sense or that's at random. So for me, every single Friday, I write a very detailed lecture. Because this is your time. And I want to make sure I don't believe in just going online and just shooting from the hip because people can tell. And your time is valuable and so is mine. So the house stood silent, bloodstained, breathing darkness, a place where unaliving had opened a portal that many people believe, unleashing something far more human than any human understanding. So in the quiet, they said you can almost hear like it whispering or waiting. So months passed after the horrific unalivings. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue sat silent. Yet it was far from peaceful. Behind the closed doors, something stirred. And the house began, that some people would say it almost like breathed its malevolence into the surrounding neighborhood. It just had this negative feeling everybody would talk about, whispering its secret to those willing to listen. Remember, neighbors reported often strange occurrences. One neighbor said they were walking their dog and it sounded like a bang went off, but no one was there. Many times people saw the flickering lights all the time. One neighbor said, was quoted as saying, I'd be sitting in my yard. I'd see a shadow move across the window, sometimes across the lawn, like someone was walking inside. But when I looked again, no one was there. And people spoke of feeling watched, being stared by unseen eyes. Another resident stated, I swear I saw the curtains moving on their own. Even when there was no breeze, sometimes the person said, I'd hear children laughing, but no children lived there anymore. So the house was no longer just a structure. It became a vessel of dread, a place where the very walls seemed to pulse with malevolent life. And people began to feel a strange pressure, like a heavy weight was pressing down on their chest when they walked past that home. There was a resident who stated on an interview, this was a big story. They said, I was walking past one night and I felt this cold rush of air, so cold that it almost burnt. And then I saw something move like a shadow, but it was huge, looming, disappeared, thank you, when I blinked. Some neighbors even refused to go near the house after dark, claiming that the malevolence was palpable. It's an invisible force. It could crush, the energy around you. There was a resident there who also stated, I was inside one evening, and suddenly all the lights in the house flickered, went on and off, on and off. And then the person says, then I saw a shadow figure standing in the corner of the room, again, glowing eyes. And it wasn't just shadows. The house seemed to have a life of its own, according to the residents and many of the bystanders. Doors would open, slam violently, furniture. Some witnesses claimed to see objects move. They would see books falling from shelves when the windows were clearly open. And many who dared even to enter the house spoke of hearing whispers, because the house eventually went up for sale. There was one individual said that they went into the house expecting to find some prank or trick, but when what they heard was not human, it was like a chorus of voices, malevolent. They heard this growl. Some say the house itself was trying to communicate, warning or threatening. So as months wore on, reports of blood-like stains allegedly began to appear on the walls and the floors. And one realtor said, I saw it myself, dark, oily stains that looked like blood. And when we tried to wipe them away, it wouldn't come off. Just bled again, as if the house were alive and bleeding. The house seemed to breathe. Some claimed that the house's very foundation was soaked with violence. The children. So the children too sensed the evil lurking within. The house was a playground for nightmares, where shadows danced. The air grew thick. And by now, the house had become like a living entity, an evil force that grew stronger as each passing day. One neighbor even told reporters that they don't believe in ghosts, but they knew that the house was different. It felt evil, like it was feeding on their fear. So the house's dark influence, that was undeniable, spreading into the neighborhood, to the minds of those nearby. They were terrified. The house stood vacant, silent yet alive, a dark presence that lurked in every shadow. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred, a place where evil had taken root. And yep, I'm going to talk about the Lutz when they purchased it. I'm also going to talk about Ed and Lorraine. When I spoke to Lorraine, I asked her, tell me step by step what happened, and you're going to hear what they did. This was a place that Lorraine described it. Lorraine Warren, she described it to me like the boundary between the living and the dead blurred, a place where evil had taken root and refused to let go. And that was only the beginning. The house's reputation would grow, its darkness deepen. Nightmares would soon spill over into the lives of those brave enough or foolish enough to step inside. So now it is December 1975. Remember, just keep in mind, as a reminder, the unalivings happened November 13, 1974. That's when the unalivings occurred. And it sat for a little bit before it was purchased by the Lutz. And this is an interesting conversation. It was December 1975, and the house at 112 Ocean Avenue sat waiting for about a year. silent for months after the unalivings. Its darkness was only beginning to stir. So George and Kathy Lutz, by the way, I was able to meet George Lutz one time. Interesting individual. I'll give you my perspective in a moment about what I think happened. So George and Kathy, Lutz, guys, I've been in the paranormal field for 35 years. So I've pretty much have met almost everybody in the paranormal community. For those of you just joining us, I'm Bishop Long, and we're giving a presentation on the Amityville house. I'll also be giving you some information that Lorraine Warren, who is a friend of mine, and she talked to me in great depth about what they experienced, and you will hear this tonight. So George and Kathy Lutz, they were seeking a fresh start after their own personal tragedies. And they believed they had found the perfect home, a true bargain. This was a major, major bargain. A chance to rebuild. This house, it is a beautiful home. And the price that they found it for, they felt like there had to be something wrong. Because it was so cheap. Because no one would buy it because they knew the history of it except for them. They had 3 children. Daniel, Christopher, and Melissa. And the house looked normal from the outside. White siding, neatly trimmed lawn, quiet streets, a very upscale neighborhood. But inside, something else lurked. Almost immediately, the darkness started to reveal itself. The first signs. So Kathy said that the first thing I noticed was the cold. Not just a chill, but this bone deep cold, like a refrigerator that had been left open in the house. So the area inside the house grew inexplicably icy, so cold that it seemed to seep into their bones. They could never keep the house warm. And they attempted to warm the house, but the cold just persisted, an unnatural presence that refused to leave. So George Lutz stated that it was like the house itself was trying to freeze us out. And he said, I'd walk into a room and suddenly I'd feel the cold, so cold I couldn't breathe. The family felt it. Oppressive, unseen force that seemed to watch, to judge. Kathy had stated that she said she'd be in the kitchen and she would hear her name being called softly, like a whisper. She'd turn around and no one would be there. Doors would open and close without anyone near. Furniture shifted slightly overnight. There was one eyewitness who said that they heard a loud thump upstairs. They went to check and they saw a shadow, big, dark, moving, sliding down the hall. And when the person obviously ran, and this was when the Lutz was just moving in. The house wasn't silent anymore. It was alive. It was breathing malevolence in every corner. Kathy had stated that she woke up one night, and there it was. She described it as a grotesque face hovering above her with glowing eyes, a twisted, malevolent smile. She said she couldn't scream. She couldn't move. She was paralyzed with fear. Now, that is sleep paralysis. Is sleep paralysis always demonic? No. But they had other activity that went along with her sleep paralysis episode. So therefore, I certainly would believe that that was demonic because they had other manifestations. So Kathy's nightmare, remember, Kathy was the wife of George Lutz. So Kathy's nightmare vision was only the beginning. And George, too. He encountered something terrifying. George told me, he said, I was lying in bed and he felt a weight on his chest, like something heavy, something evil. And he looked up and he saw a shadow figure. It was huge with red eyes. And he claims it just stared at him and then vanished. The walls seemed to breathe. And the house like pulsed with an unseen life, like a beast waiting to strike. And the children who lived there, by the way, the Lutz's family, their stories were no less disturbing. Melissa says that sometimes she would see things in the corner of her room, shadowy figures, monsters hiding in the dark. She said she'd wake up crying, and her parents wouldn't see what she saw. Yes, Bishop, what? And Daniel, he said, I'd hear my name called when no one was there. And once I saw a figure standing on the foot of his bed, big, dark, glowing eyes. He said he was so scared he couldn't move. So the house had become a nightmare playground where shadows moved on their own. Unseen forces whispered secrets meant to terrify, and they did. The family's terror intensified from there. So cold spots would appear all the time. Temperatures dropping so sharply that the air almost felt frozen. Doors would now slam with extreme violence. Furniture tossed, sometimes when no one was around, but they would be in another room, and the couch would be overturned, the dinner table would be overturned. Kathy had stated, she said, one night I was sitting in the living room when I felt something grab my ankle, something invisible. And I looked down, she said, and there was nothing, but I knew I wasn't alone. Yeah, demons can certainly cause that, the atmosphere to change, the shift. And this is what they absolutely experience. And then the blood stains, dark, oily, appearing on walls, furniture, even furniture. And they would try floors, they would try to scrub it, and it would go away and they'd come right back. And Kathy said it looked like blood, dark, thick, and sticky. But no matter how much she wiped, it always came back. So the house influence spread beyond just the physical. It also seemed to reach deep into their minds, filling their thoughts with dread, their dreams with nightmares. So George Lutz said that he'd be in bed and he'd see shadows moving, things that he knew were not there. But he'd wake up trembling, feeling like he was being watched all the time. And it was causing extreme sleep deprivation. That is what you'd call demonic oppression. That's trying to attack your will. It's affecting you. It's biting, scratching, pinching you. It causes such deep. And he worked too. He had a job, so he had his own business. But yet, despite all this, they stayed. And they stayed primarily because they were financially stuck. They had bought this house. It was a great deal. It was a great deal, but it stretched their finances because he had a good business, but the business started kind of dwindling a little bit. Money became pretty tight, so it's not as if they could just sell because, quite honestly, no one was going to buy the house because they knew the reputation. But the house was relentless. So Kathy said that they couldn't take it anymore. Every night was a battle against the darkness, against what they couldn't see. And it felt like the house was trying to break us piece by piece, as she described it. George stated it was like living inside a nightmare that would not end. He said we felt hopeless, trapped in a house that wanted us to stay and never leave. Yep, I mentioned that, Punky. Yep. And so the house is dark. The dark influence, it grew stronger, feeding on their fear, their despair. And that was only the beginning of the Lutz's family nightmare, a house that seemed to breathe malevolence, evil, that beckoned darkness into the very lives they had entered, seeking a new life, but instead found themselves trapped inside a living hell. And as the shadows lengthened, the true horror was only just beginning. So the house at 112 Ocean Avenue had become a nightmare. An entity that was capable of warping reality, feeding on fear, manifesting horrors that defied logic. Strange sights, unearthly sounds, blood that seemed to seep from the very walls. But it started subtly, shadows flickering at the corner of visions, figures glimpsed, vanished, when looking at directly. And Kathy said in the beginning, one night she said, I saw a tall, dark figure standing at the foot of her bed. Its eyes were burning, red and glow, she described it. She said she couldn't scream. She couldn't move. She had a lot. Kathy suffered from extreme sleep paralysis. She never had sleep paralysis prior to moving into that home. Never. And her sleep paralysis episodes were absolutely terrifying. And it wasn't just the shadows. She reported seeing full body apparitions in that home. Sometimes human, sometimes grotesque. And the most disturbing phenomenon was not the blood, not just stains, but blood that appeared and seemed to pulse. And I didn't quite understand as I read a little bit deeper. I remember asking Lorraine about that. And she said that Kathy said that it seemed dark, like an oily stains on the wall, seeping down the wall. And she cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. It just wouldn't go away. Kathy described it as the house like it was alive, like it was bleeding, and the blood was a part of the house. But the house's blood was not just a visual horror. It was a living, malevolent force. So occasionally, the whole family would describe seeing faces, twisted, demonic, visuals, screaming in pain, in rage or pain. One of the children said that they were getting ready for school, and they looked into a mirror and saw a face. It was disfigured, with eyes burning with hatred. Obviously, it wasn't their face. It was like a demon's face. And most of the family all reported full body apparitions, monstrous, shadowy figures. Kathy said that she would wake up in the middle of the night trembling because she would see things she couldn't describe. And what was interesting at first, George didn't experience this. And George was getting really upset with Kathy and the kids because they would describe these things, and George was under tremendous financial stress because, again, his business was kind of struggling, and they were strapped. I mean, they were pushed to the financial limit with this house, even though they got it for a great deal. So George was kind of getting angry, pretty angry, because, the family and his wife kept saying that they were seeing these things. And Kathy even described once seeing a creature with wings, like a demon, hovering over her bed. And then George finally began experiencing these things, and he said it was like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. He'd wake up, the room would be filled with a dark fog. And he described like hands grabbing at him, pulling him into the darkness. So the house's true nature was revealed, an entity that thrived on suffering. So the bloodstains grew darker and thicker. Lorraine and Ed saw these as well. They would appear overnight, oozing from the walls and floors. And they couldn't find out why. They didn't understand. The kids said that you'd wake up and there it would be this dark, oily blood spreading on the walls. They'd wipe it away in the morning. It was back more than ever before. And Kathy always said it was like the house was alive, like feeding on the blood. So Kathy described the faces of the family that was unalived as well. In the mirror, she would glance and see the families that were unalived, they were twisted, frozen in horror. Their eyes seemed like to plead for help, for mercy. And some claimed they were the spirits of the DeFeo family. But the house was not just a building. It was a conduit for evil. It's like the house was alive, breathing, feeding on their fear. And Kathy stated that we saw things no one should see. We felt things no one should feel. we knew that we had to get out. And so the true horror of the house was revealed. Dark, bloodstained, alive with malevolence, waiting for the next victim. So after weeks living inside this relentless nightmare, and it was a complete nightmare, the Lutz family had reached their breaking point. The house had become a living, breathing malevolence. That's what they described it as, an evil that sought to consume the entire family. And in the dead of night, they made a desperate decision to escape. The family packed their belongings quickly, unaware. Got a little puzzle. 1 second, everybody. Let me do a puzzle here. There you go. So the family packed what they could. They didn't pack everything, just all the necessities, unaware that darkness was still clung to them, waiting for the next victim. And Kathy said, we knew we had to leave. She said, I felt the house trying to hold on to us like it didn't want us to go. And George described the air as being very thick with evil. Never felt anything like it. It was as if the house was alive, trying to keep us inside. And they just took off. They got out of there, and that was done. And then Kathy said, as they left, she looked back and she swore, should say, that she saw shadows moving inside that home. It was like the house was alive, angry. And George described it. It felt like it was trying to grab us, like a beast trying to hold on to its prey. So the house seemed to scream in frustration. The story exploded across the nation. The family's accounts of supernatural terror, images of blood, shadows, demonic faces, captivated the public. And so, but the trauma was real. The family had escaped, yes, but the scars remained, psychological wounds that would linger forever. And Kathy says we were never the same after that night. The house, she claims, took something from them, something that they can't explain. And George described it, even after being out of that house for a while, he said, I would still see the faces, those terrible faces. I'd hear the whispers. I'd wake up sometime expecting to see it all again. They fled, battered, broken, but the house's darkness persisted, waiting and lurking. So today the house still stands. It's changed hands many times, owners, but the stories persist. Now, visitors report feeling an oppressive presence feeling as they step into the property. One eyewitness who saw and was going to consider buying the house said, I went inside expecting nothing, but they felt cold, like I was walking into a grave. And allegedly they heard whispers in the halls. And I think they were just more of the trying to see what they would feel and experience that, because it was a popular story. Now, the owners of it now say that nothing has happened. They have not experienced anything. The story of the Lutz family escape has become legend. It's a cautionary tale of evil beyond our understanding. So the house remains a monument of horror, waiting silently for the next chapter in the dark history. So like I said, the Lutz family escaped, but the house of 112 Ocean Avenue would forever be etched into the collective consciousness as a place where evil had taken root. Now, I want to go a little bit deeper into the terror that drove them out, because that's important. So decades have passed since the Lutz family fled their nightmare. The house of 112 Ocean Avenue still stands, and its darkness has not faded. If anything, perhaps even deepened. Today, the house is a private residence. Again, it changed hands multiple times. Some owners claiming to experience strange, unexplained phenomena, others not. The people who are living there now said they're not experiencing anything. Some visitors report feeling a coldness that seeps into the very bones, an icy grip that wouldn't let it go. Others say that they hear faint voices, whispers, calling their names. There was individuals that went in when they were considering purchasing, when it eventually went for sale. They walked into the living room, and within seconds, they said they felt their skin crawling, and they looked around. They saw a shadow move across the wall, allegedly. Another visitor said that they were in the dining room and they heard a whisper right behind her, clear as day. And they claim it said their name. Turn around, there was nothing there. So many who entered speak of this like a palpable force, an entity that seems to breathe and pulse with evil. One individual who went into the home said that they saw something standing in the corner of the room, a tall, dark figure, glowing red eyes. No one else saw it except for them, to be fair. Some say the house is a portal, an entryway. Allegedly, the blood stains are not there anymore. So the owners have not reported anything at all. Kathy said, sometimes I swear, she says, I can still smell the blood, faint, metallic, like the house it was bleeding. She described that all the time. And many believe that the house is more than just a building. It's a living, breathing entity that some people claim. And some say that the darkness is aware of those who enter, waiting, watching. There was an individual who went in there as well, said, I was inside to kind of document the house. They were allegedly trying to say that they were wanting to buy it. And suddenly they felt a cold wind rush past them. So cold that it allegedly felt like it burned. And they turned and saw a shadow figure, glowing red eyes. No one else saw it except for that person. Another individual said they felt a pressure on their chest, like something heavy was sitting on them. Kathy stated once to a news outlet, she said, sometimes I wonder if it's still alive, if it's waiting for someone else to walk into its trap. The house, she says, never forgets. And in the quiet moments, when the wind is still, you can almost hear it whispering your name, allegedly. So the house at 112 Ocean Avenue remains a monument to horror. There were so many people that went to visit this home that the current homeowners actually kind of remodeled the outside of it. So to kind of take away from the look that you've just seen it on the movies or things of this nature. The house was moved. The house is still there. It was renovated. Yeah, it's occupied now. It is occupied now. And the current owners say they're not experiencing anything. And the current owners also don't want people, the gawkers, because there were so many people that were going to this home and taking pictures and going even onto the grass, that it was causing problems. So they remodeled the outside of it, completely remodeled it to try to make it look like no longer that from the movies you've seen. Now, to be fair, there are theories, skeptics, and let's talk about this because we have to. So for decades, the story of the Amityville Horror has sparked debate, skepticism, fascination. Was it a true supernatural manifestation or a carefully crafted hoax? For something in between. Now, many believe the house is cursed, built on land that was soaked with Native American lands or rituals. Ultimately, we'll never really know what caused it or caused the terror, I should say. Now, some people claim, and again, I can't verify this, but some people claim that they have heard stories that Native Americans performed rituals there long before the house was built, and that the land itself was cursed and the house became a vessel for that evil. Others argue that a demonic force was awakened. Could it be a portal, an entryway to realms beyond our understanding? And some believe the house is a conduit, a place where the supernatural bleeds into reality. Now, skeptics suggest that the story's origin lie not in superficial or supernatural forces, but in the fragile minds of those who believe or involved. There was one skeptic who stated that people want to believe in ghosts and demons, but maybe it was just fear, stress, and exhaustion playing tricks on their minds. And psychologists point out that trauma, grief, hysteria can create vivid hallucinations. Shared hysteria can produce a collective delusion. where everyone's fear feeds off each other, growing more intense with the retelling. Critics argue that the entire story was a fabrication, crafted by the family and authors to sell books, movie, and fame. Some say that the Lutz family staged the whole thing, exaggerating every detail to make money. It was all a clever scam. And some point out inconsistencies in their stories, discrepancies in timelines, the lack of concrete evidence. So was it a hoax, or did something darker lurk behind the scenes? The truth, though, remains elusive. Many researchers and investigators have tried to unravel this mystery, some convinced, others skeptical. One person said, "I've been inside the house and I felt nothing but darkness. But I also know people can be convinced of anything. And yet the stories persist. The movies are still being made, fueling a legend that refuses to die. And despite the skepticism, the story of Amityville has become a cultural phenomenon, an enduring symbol of horror and the unknown." You know, the movie, the books, these transform the house into a myth. Whether real or imagined, I think the fear remains real. So the house at 112 Ocean Avenue continues to haunt the collective consciousness. And so the debate continues. Was it supernatural, psychological, a clever scam? Well, maybe the truth is somewhere in between, an intersection of belief, fear, the unknown. I think we need to have these conversations. But first, I want to talk about my friends, or my friend, Lorraine Warren, and how they got involved in the case. And I spoke to Lorraine Warren a lot about Amityville. And when I interviewed her on the show several years ago, I kept all the notes, and I'm going to share some of the things that she described on this particular case and what she experienced. And I'll tell you my opinion in just a second. But first, we're going to go on the top of the hour, and let's go ahead and do this really quick little reminder. Everyone, I want you to please go to KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. KGRADB.com. Click on the shop link. Thank you very much. If you click on the shop link, make sure you click my name, Bishop James Long. They have some amazing products there. Really, really amazing products. And you please know that 100% of the profits that would go to me as a community, we are donating that to the MKS Kids Foundation. It is an orphanage in Uganda, and they are nonprofit, self-funded. So again, please do that. KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Click on the shop link and then click my name. Really great products. And like I said, 100% of the profits that would go to me, we're donating to the kids. Also, if you go to my website, bishopjameslong.com, I have a brand new book out, just published. It's Bishop Long's Paranormal Investigator Manual, and it's over 200 pages. A lot of work went into this. So if you purchase that book, just go to Bishop James Long, scroll down, you'll see it. 100% of the profits is set up to the MKS Kids Foundation, 100%. And so I've already set all that up for them so they can receive the funding. So you'll be helping them, and you'll be getting a great product too. All right, let's talk about Ed and Lorraine. Before the house, before the terror, before the bloodstains and shadowy figures, we turn now our eyes onto two individuals who devoted their lives to confronting the darkness, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Who were they? What dark secrets did they uncover? Well, Ed Warren was born into a world of shadows, World War II veteran. He carried scars, both seen and unseen. It was his fascination with the supernatural that would define his destiny. So he claimed to have seen spirits from a young age, visions of figures cloaked in darkness, whispers that beckoned him into the unknown. And he studied the occult, read ancient texts, learned to confront the unseen forces lurking in the shadows. Ed has stated, there are things in this world you cannot see, but they see you, and they want to destroy you. So Ed's reputation grew as a demonologist, an expert in the dark arts, and a man willing to face the worst evils. Now, Lorraine, she was born with a very special gift. She was a psychic sight that allowed her to see spirits, visions, energies beyond the physical realm. From childhood, Lorraine claimed to see spirits, sometimes friendly, sometimes malevolent. And she described visions of suffering, torment, and evil beyond mortal comprehension. Thank you, sharing. She told me, she said, I see things others cannot. I feel the pain, the anger, the darkness, and I know when evil is near. So her ability to connect with spirits made her a sought-after medium, but also a target of skepticism and fear. So together, Ed and Lorraine, they formed a formidable team, a demonologist and a clairvoyant, fighting darkness in a world that refused to believe. And they investigated haunted houses, demonic possessions that threatened lives. They caught an EVP at the house that said, leave, stop, no more. And they documented objects moving on their own, unexplained cold spots, apparitions so vivid they seemed to breathe. Lorraine says that she saw a shadow, a tall, dark figure in that house, standing at the foot of the bed. Its eyes glowed like fire. And Ed said that when they were in the house, the Amityville house, we knew we were up against something evil, something that could possess, torment, and even unalive. So they faced the darkness head on, armed with faith and knowledge, courage. Nothing could prepare them for what awaited in Amityville. So over decades, their reputation grew, both feared and revered. They were the investigators who dared to go where others would not. And they left behind evidence, photographs, shadow figures, EVP recordings, unearthly voices, eyewitness testimonies of objects moving, spirits manifesting. Ed said that he once said that we've seen things that defy explanation. Evil is real and it's here. So their work was controversial, and critics called them charlatans. Believers called them heroes. Their evidence remains an enduring legacy. So to this day, many believe that the Warrens uncovered truths that science refuses to acknowledge, and they fought a war unseen against forces that threaten all of us. Lorraine told me that evil does not sleep, it awaits and it watches. Ed once said that we may have lost some battles, but the war is ongoing, and the house is in Amityville. He says, I believe it's still alive, waiting for the next to fall under its spell. Their testament is a testament of courage, facing the darkness. So Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were guardians of the unseen, warriors against darkness. And they believed evil was real, and it is. And their evidence suggests that some forces in this world are beyond our understanding. So let's go into this and have a conversation about what happened. It's December 18th, 1975. The Warrens pull up to the house, the Amityville house, in their car, headlights slicing through the rain, slick darkness. And Lorraine told me the moment I saw that house, I felt a coldness, like icy fingers wrapping around my heart. She said it was alive. It felt like it was waiting. And Ed stated that the house isn't just old wood and brick, it's a vessel full of malevolence. So they step inside. Instantly, the atmosphere shifts. The air thickens, heavy, oppressive, like suffocating. Lorraine told me, she said, I could feel a presence, something ancient and angry. It's like the house itself is alive, breathing. She said you can almost hear it, like a heartbeat pounding in the walls. So the cameras roll. They're EVP. EVP stands for electronic voice phenomena. Those are digital recorders that you capture. They capture eerie sounds. One EVP that they caught said, leave before it's too late. They record strange noises, disembodied whispers, calling their names. Disembodied means they can actually hear it with their ears. They heard growls, Lorraine said that she saw a shadow move, tall, glowing red eyes. It was watching us, waiting to strike. She also said objects are shifting before our eyes, furniture sliding, pictures tilting. The house is trying to communicate, she thought. There was one voice that said, "You cannot escape." And so they capture evidence. Images of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the camera's view. They saw orbs. Most of the time, orbs can be explained as dust particles or bugs. But in these cases, it seemed to have an intent behind its moving. She said the shadow people that she saw they were not human. It was something else, something dark, and that the house is not just haunted. Lorraine truly believed it had a demonic portal. So the Warrens, and again, this is something that I talked to Lorraine about. I disagreed with them doing this, but they did perform a seance. They also performed a seance at the other house too, the House of Darkness, House of Light, that Andrea Perrin grew up in. Yeah, that caused a lot of problems. So the Warrens performed this seance, seeking to communicate with the unseen evil. And Lorraine told me, she said, I saw it, the demon. It was huge, glowing red eyes. And she said, it's feeding off of our fear. And their recordings capture the demonic force, the deep voice commanding, like a full of rage, she described it as. So she saw objects levitate briefly, furniture tilt on its side, then fall over or slide across the floor. Flies everywhere, dead flies everywhere. Lorraine also saw a figure manifest, a horrific, distorted. She described as his face was twisting in rage. And Ed said the house was a vessel, a gateway for evil. And he truly believed that they had only just begun to scratch the surface. So the Warrens fight to banish the evil with prayer and ritual. Lorraine called upon angels, saints, the divine to push back the darkness. But she said it's stubborn, resisting. The evil is ancient and powerful. Again, they had so much evidence on growls and voices, images that suggest the darkness was resisting the spiritual assault. So inside the house, the Warrens faced a primal evil. Oh, thank you very much, Monkey. An intelligent that sought to torment and even possess. Let me find this picture. Hold on. I'm gonna find this one. Let me find this real quick. Okay. I'm going to show you something. In just 1 second, let me bear with me for a second because this is important. Because I asked her about this because I wanted to know if this was real. Lorraine said that the picture you're about to see was 100% real. There were no children. Yep, there were no children. When they were doing this, there were no children that were present. And I think when you see this in a moment, you're going to be quite interested. So let me, hold on. Give me a few minutes. Let me do this real quick because I want to show everybody. Because unfortunately, because TikTok, I can't connect to TikTok through StreamYard. So I have to do things 15 different ways just to be able. Now you do it, you little heifer. Okay. Let me share. Okay. I think that's the button. Sure. Here's what you need to understand. There was no children. There were no children in that house. None. When they were doing their investigation. And you'll see a little boy beside, you can't really see it because it's cut off. That was one of the little boys that had been unalived 1 year prior to. He looks awfully similar, awfully close to that little boy. So Lorraine was 1,000,000% convinced. That there were no children. So I asked her 3 times, "Are you absolutely certain there were no children?" She would no, there wasn't. They were not in that house. They made sure that they were not in that house. And when you see that, that kind of makes you give you a different perspective, doesn't it? So they had pictures, growls, voices, images. And inside the house, the Warrens faced a primal evil, an intelligence that sought to torment, destroy. And they documented its presence through sound, image. Lorraine said that we knew that we were fighting something ancient, something evil that had been waiting for us. And she also said this was only the beginning. The house was alive, so we had to confront what lurked in its shadows. Right. So the Warrens meticulously, they set up all their equipment, the cameras, EVP recordings. And Lorraine said, we knew that we were dealing with something powerful. We had to record everything, every whisper, everything. These are some of the EVPs that they captured. One EVP said, leave or die. Another EVP said, you can't escape. Another EVP they clearly hear is, we're always here. So again, EVPs are what you capture on digital recorders. These recordings capture the house's darkest corners, suggest a consciousness, a malevolent intelligence. And Lorraine said, if you listen to the EVPs, these voices aren't human. They're predatory. They're hungry. They were full of rage, she described them. They took photographs, images that continued to haunt believers. In the dark corners of the house, shadow figures appear, tall, dark, humanoid shapes. And she described them as they're not normal. They normal. Thank you very much. Thank you, RCD. She said they move, they flicker. And the orbs, mysterious floating lights that appear in the photographs. But again, Ed was a skeptic. He said that was not dust. It was not a bug. He said it was something watching them. So the Warrens recorded objects shifting, the furniture sliding across the floor. Lorraine told me that she saw a chair slide across the room by itself, and that things are being manipulated by unseen hands. A couple other EVPs that Lorraine said that they captured was, you cannot leave, stay with us. And the Warrens also captured evidence of what they believe was possession. They did see objects levitating, physical attacks, voices. And Lorraine says she felt their presence, trying voice commanding, relentless. So the house wasn't just a powerful spiritual battlefield, it was physical. And Ed stated that he watched in horror as a chair lifted, spun in midair, as if it was the house itself was alive, and it was thrown across the room. So the Warrens' evidence was shocking. Images of shadowy figures, recording of voices. And inside the house, the Warrens uncovered a terrifying reality, a place where evil manifests physically, spiritually, psychologically. And they documented its presence, proof that some forces in this world are beyond our understanding. So the evidence was clear. Now, the Warrens believe the house truly had demonic infestation. Lorraine believed that the evil was enormous, like a beast. And they said you could feel it, an intelligence, a hunger, trying to break them. And the Warrens performed a final ritual, a spiritual battle to cast out the evil. So Lorraine said that they called upon divine powers and angels and saints. They called a priest to go in. The priest walked in, and he ran out the door within 5 minutes, and he said he's not returning. So they couldn't have no other clergy would help them. Then Ed said, we knew we were fighting not just a spirit, but a force of pure malevolence. But despite their efforts, the evil resisted. It howled through the recordings, growled through the shadows. And so the Warrens' evidence pointed to a presence it's not a ghost. It was an intelligent, malevolent force. And Lorraine told me, she said, this was not a spirit, it was a demon, a force of evil that feeds on fear and suffering. So they believed they'd uncovered the true nature of the house. And so the Warrens left the house with evidence and a warning that some forces are too dark to banish. And they were overwhelmed with this. So Ed and Lorraine, they dedicated their lives to confronting evil, and they faced demons, possessions, and haunted places. Lorraine told me in an interview when I spoke to her that evil is real. It's not just in stories. It's in places like that house, waiting, hungry. And their work became legend, the proof of a battle between light and darkness. Today, again, the house still stands. Some people say, the current owners say that there's nothing going on. Nothing, no evil. But here's what I know. Uncovering all the evidence, speaking to a lot of people, let me tell you what I think happened. So I think when the DeFeo family had that terrible situation, the unalivings, that residual energy was so overwhelming and so negative that it left that imprint there in that home, that negative poltergeist energy. Poltergeist means noisy ghost. It's not a ghost at all. It is energy, negative energy that someone is omitting. So, the house next door is experiencing haunting? That's interesting. So what's happened is that energy remained in that home. So George Lutz and his wife, they purchased this home. For a steal. It was unbelievably, in that area, more than affordable. It was too good to be true. The problem is George's business was starting to fail a little bit, and he wasn't doing so good. And that was causing even more anxiety and more stress. Now, there are people who knew George Lutz, and they claim, this is their claim, I only met George once, but I didn't, there was something dark around him. That's just my perception. But the people who did know George say that George participated in some heavy, dark stuff. And I even asked him, I said, well, what do you mean by heavy, dark stuff? Give me specifics. So are we talking about Satanism? What are we talking about? Satanism, evil, black magic? What are we talking about? The person looked at me and said, all the above. Now, they knew George, and they were friends with George. And they did not like the fact that George dabbled in some pretty heavy stuff, dark stuff. It is their opinion that George invited this evil into their home with the black magic, with the Satanism, and that invitation was granted, and you already have the residual, you already have the poltergeist activity. Not that demons need poltergeist activity, but you already have that energy there. So their belief is, again, I didn't know George personally. Like I said, I met him, and there was some darkness there. You could feel it. And so that made sense to me that there was an invitation that was apparently given. There's also the theory that George Lutz did do the invitation, but that George wasn't so much terrified in that he was trying to create a story so they could get out of their mortgage because they were behind and they were struggling financially. And George was struggling financially because his business was not doing good. So there is a theory that he and one of his other friends concocted this really scary story situation so that they could try to get out of their mortgage. What I think happened is this. I think after the DeFeo situation, that residual energy was there, that poltergeist energy was there. And I think George Lutz, from pretty much credible people that I know who did know him, I'm pretty convinced that he was into some dark stuff. And that invitation invited something even darker into that home. And I think they experienced that activity. I do believe that Kathy experienced that activity. And I believe George even acknowledged it as well. But George was dabbling in this dark stuff. And I also think that they used this to their advantage to try to get out of this mortgage. I do believe Lorraine and I do believe Ed in what they captured. Because by the time Ed and Lorraine got involved in the case, George had already done some pretty dark stuff in that home. And the invitation had already been granted. And I also think, however, with Lorraine choosing to do a seance, which is not a good idea, I think that not only amplified, but I think also then they became the targets as well, because that's a form of invitation. When you do a seance and you're trying to communicate with a spirit, you really have, no matter who tells you, you cannot control who comes through. You just can't. I'm sorry, you can't. Demons don't follow your rules. And so once the invitation is granted, you can say, I surround myself by white light until you're blue in the face. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. So if you go to a location, in other words, that's demonically infested, and I'll surround myself with white light and no evil can come through. But the problem is by your very presence in that location, that is a form of invitation. So you can't say, well, I don't want them to come through. No, you can't do it. Well, they don't follow what you want. And the same thing with the seance. I think in the seance situation, I think it caused an invitation for those individuals, those participants that were there, and they became marked as well. So I do believe that the home had a violent case of demonic infestation. And I absolutely do believe that Ed and Lorraine experienced demonic activity. They have the EVPs. They have the pictures. That picture that you saw was not of a little boy. That picture was of a demonic. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so I believe that they captured enough evidence that, in my opinion, I think that validates their claim that this was a demonic infestation case. And I do believe it was. But I also believe that George Lutz was hugely responsible for participating in some stuff that he shouldn't have participated in. And because of that, the invitation was given. And all hell broke loose in their home. So that is what I think about the Amityville Horror House. Lorraine did not like that home. And she made it very, very clear to me that she felt overwhelmed, stressed, watched, and that they both felt, even Ed was more of Lorraine was more of the empathy, the feeling, the emotions. Ed was more focused on let's get the evidence, let's capture the evidence. I mean, she was empathic. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Lorraine was. She was an empath, no question. And I think she was overwhelmed in that house. I wish that they, and I told her this. I said, well, it was scary about the seance. And she said, well, that's the problem. When we're trying to find out what is there, we're trying to document this evidence. And they got the documentation. And unfortunately, what accepted their invitation was something quite violent. So, yeah, let me just say something about Ed and Lorraine very quickly. So that is the presentation of the Amityville Horror House. But let me say something about Ed and Lorraine that a lot of people don't know. Ed and Lorraine used their celebrity status, and they were they were, they had some celebrity status to benefit a lot of individuals. For example, there was an individual in Ohio, and they absolutely believed without question that this was a possession case. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Lorraine was convinced, and so was Ed, that this young person needed an exorcism immediately. The individual did not belong to a Catholic church. So Ed went to the Catholic church, and he was Catholic, requested that they at least look at the case because he was convinced that this person needed an exorcism. And the church basically told him no. They're not a member of the church, so we're not going to help them. And Ed begged them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ed begged them multiple times. And the church said no, they're not members of the church. So this is what Ed did. He took his and his wife's celebrity status at that time, and he called a huge press, a briefing. So the news, the press showed up at this house, and he stood on that porch and he said, "We have approached the church. We have begged the church. This family needs help, and they are being told no." They did a press conference, that they're not members of the church, and the church wasn't going to help them. And he said, "We call upon the diocese to step up and help this family right away." Thank you, guys. Thank you for the gifts. It's funny because after that press conference, the church got involved. Thank you, Susie. The press got involved, and they helped this young man. See, and they weren't paid for that. So, yes, I mean, they made a living. They weren't millionaires, but they made a living. And there's a lot of people that say, "Well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't charge," and all this stuff. And I get all that. But there were many cases that they worked that you never heard about. And they never charged. But no, there were some cases that they did charge. They spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. They wrote, and they that's how they made their income, their living. But there were so many cases that they worked, and they used their celebrity status to get the church involved to help. And to me, it's kind of sad that they had to take that step just to get help for this family. But they did. And when I talked to Lorraine about that, I thought that was brilliant. And that really affected Lorraine too, though. She was really upset because she was very dedicated in her faith. And she was really upset that the church just wouldn't help because the people were not Roman Catholics. And she said, "It doesn't matter if they're not Roman Catholics. The fact is the family needed help. And we were begging the church to help, and we gave them all the evidence, and clearly there was something there." So there's a lot of things that you guys maybe have never heard about, Ed and Lorraine using their celebrity status to help a lot of people, and they did. And so they dedicated their entire life to that. And so I get it. There's always going to be those naysayers, but the naysayers, let me tell you something about the naysayers. The naysayers who like to attack Ed and Lorraine, or who like to attack other paranormal investigators, or individuals like myself, the naysayers are never the ones who pick up the phone at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They are never the ones to go to these people's homes, not charge one penny, and to help to investigate, to find out what's going on. Thank you. They're not the ones doing that. But they're always the naysayers. They're always the one attacking the people who do. And that's a shame. That is a shame. Because I'm going to tell you this right now, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Paranormal investigators that I work with are doing ministry. Now, whether you like it or not, they are doing ministry. And I'll tell you why. So when I first started 25 years ago, I did not have help. I tried to figure out how I was going to do this, because when I went public with my ministry, I didn't even know how to do it. How was I going to get to California or New York or Florida, Texas? How was I going to do this? I haven't won the lottery. So then I started a network. The whole network was to find teams in every single state. so that when I got a case in California, I could contact that team and say, please go out, investigate this, and let me know what's going on. And if in fact something is demonic, then I'll try to raise funds somehow to get there. So the people who are all being attacked, the paranormal investigators, if you attack a paranormal investigator, you should be ashamed of yourself, because you clearly don't understand ministry if you do. If you attack them, the people that I work with, they spend a lot of money on these. Look, these products that you buy are not cheap. These tools, these equipment, it's not cheap. So number one, they spend a lot of money on this equipment. Number two, they don't charge ever. Number three, they leave their family behind to go help a family they don't even know. And they don't owe this family anything. But yet they're willing to travel 8, 10, 11, whatever hours to this location and spend hours upon hours investigating and possibly putting themselves in harm. Thank you very much, so please. And then they have to go through all that evidence. That is painstaking. All that, it takes forever. You have to go through all the EVPs, all the video, all the pictures, and you put it all together, and then they send it to me. This is what we captured. And the whole time they don't charge. So for those of you who keep attacking paranormal investigators, okay, I want you to go out and buy the equipment. I want you to answer the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. I want you to travel 10 hours to a home, to family you don't even know. And I want you to spend hours upon hours investigating and going through all the evidence. And then I don't want you to charge a penny. And then I want you to come talk to me about whether paranormal investigators are doing the work of the devil. But see, the naysayers, they don't do that. They don't do that because it's too easy to do this. So for the paranormal investigators out there who help clergy, you guys are an absolute necessity. You're a necessity. And it's vital. Because the teams that I work with, they don't believe everything is a demon, because everything is not a demon. Period. Dot. The end. It is not. Look, I'm kind of getting a little tired of people constantly saying everything is demonic. It is not. It is not. Look, if it was, I would tell you. But it isn't. So we have debunked that argument time and time and time. And for those of you who are paranormal investigators, thank you very much. Please, let me just ask this one. If you're a paranormal investigator, it's a yes or no question. Is everything paranormal related demonic? Just say yes or no. I'm very curious about what you would say. Is everything that's paranormal related, or is everything haunted? Is it all demonic? I guarantee it. No. So people who keep saying it is, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You are wrong. You're incorrect. And Jack's Paranormal says 25 years and only 2 demonic cases. And there's cross guard paranormal. No, Trish, no, Thor, no. Thank you very much. See, that's what it's just simply not true. It's not true. If it were, we would tell you. So I'm just giving you heads up. It's just simply no. Okay. And thank you very much. And by the way, the Bible talks about ghosts. The idea that people say the Bible says that the ghosts are not real. No, it does not. It does not say that at all. Actually, it affirms that ghosts exist. In Matthew chapter 14, verse 26. Thank you. Remember, Jesus was walking on water. And the disciples were terrified. They saw him walking on water. They were terrified. It's a ghost. And then they're going to say, well, it meant demon. No, it's not. The word that is used here in Greek and then, of course, in demon are 2 different words. It is ghost. And then also when Jesus was rose from the dead in Luke chapter 24, verse 36 through 51. says the disciples were terrified because they thought they were seeing a ghost. And Jesus then said, look at my hands and feet and see that I am. Touch me and find out for yourselves. Ghosts don't have flesh and bones as you see that I have. So what does that tell you? If ghosts don't exist, Jesus would have said, don't be silly. Ghosts don't exist. But that's not what he said. He clarified, ghosts don't have this. So the idea that everything is demonic is simply not true. It's just not. I believe a ghost is a human spirit. Heaven is not forced upon anyone. Heaven is presented. We know that free will exists in heaven. We know this because Satan freely chose to reject God while in heaven. So therefore, free will must exist. So the idea that free will is forced upon anyone is absurd. Can you not be in heaven and be here at the same time? Because heaven exists outside of time and space. Heaven is not restricted to time or space. So I argue you can certainly be in heaven and be with your loved one at the same time. Okay. So for those paranormal investigators out there who work with clergy, first of all, paranormal investigators, please understand that if you're going to work a demonic case, make sure you're working with a person who's really trained. Okay, because you don't want to put yourself in a precarious situation. So that's really, really important. And never ever perform an exorcism. Just don't do this. The solemn rite of exorcism is very clear. In the rubrics, in the rules, it says if you're not a validly ordained priest, you have no business even reading it. Now, I didn't write it. I'm just telling you what the rules say. So if you are not a validly ordained priest, please do not perform these rituals. And understand something, friends. If you are working a demonic case, the moment you begin to pray, thank you, Linda, that is the moment you begin. That is, and this is very important to understand. There's a difference between invitation, that's right, and demons know this. When you're inviting, invitation is, come on, demons, I dare you to do something. I dare you to do something. Now you're inviting. But when you're provoking, that is prayer. That is provocation. So when you begin to pray, the litany of saints, the Our Father, the Saint Michael, and you truly have a demonic infested issue, you're going to get a response. You are provoking. In the minor rite of exorcism, let me explain how this works. You don't perform an exorcism on a building. It doesn't exist. You bless the building, the home. You perform the minor rite of exorcism on the demonic entity that has infested itself in the building. So what you do is you start at whatever level you want. If there's 3 levels or 2 levels, you start at the basement or work, doesn't matter. Ultimately, the room with the most activity, that's the last room. So I bless the area. I go down. If there's a basement, I work my way up or wherever the most violent activity is. The moment I begin to pray, I am purposely provoking. I am forcing the entity, thank you, I'm forcing the entity to manifest itself. Then I perform the exorcism on the malevolent spirit. But you have to understand when you do this, you put yourself in a precarious situation. So you need to know what to do if that happens. And this is why I say to you, don't put yourself in that situation. Let clergy handle that. And that's really important. Yeah, thank you very much for the gift. Thank you. Let clergy handle this. Because if you start messing with this and you force this entity to manifest, and if you're not prepared, then you could get in some serious trouble. And not only that, but if you're in a private residence, you could cause the activity to really amplify. So it's important to understand that, thank you, the team that I work with, the teams, what they do is they go and they document. They gather all the evidence. They're not there to perform the minor rite of exorcism. They are there to document, to see if there is any validity in what is being reported. They present that to me, and then we make the decision as to whether or not we're going to proceed. Oh, yes, Anne-Marie. At the Sally house, we had one of our teams went there, and one of the investigators was, I'll never forget this, but it was the Sally house in Kansas, and we actually have an unbelievable picture. But we heard this blood curdling scream. I mean, the scream was unbelievable. And the team went into the room where this one investigator was, and they saw him. He had a cross necklace, and the necklace was on the skin. They saw him lift the cross with skin. And he pulled, as he was pulling this cross off, the cross embedded into his skin. He has a 3rd-degree burn. Even to this day, you can see the cross mark. It embedded into the skin. I mean, you could see, when he pulled it off, you could see the skin being pulled off with it. So what I'm saying to you is this stuff, I understand that a lot of people, they want to see it to believe it. But the problem is when you see it, that implies that you're in the presence of it. And if you're in the presence of it, then you can be a target of it. Today, tomorrow, or the next day. They are very patient, and they will wait at the opportune time to attack. And that's when demonic oppression or demonic obsession begins. You need to understand something. When you're dealing with demonic oppression and demonic obsession, that is very violent. Demonic oppression is when it begins to attack you physically, biting, scratching, pinching you, pulling your hair, grabbing your ankles. It causes such sleep deprivation. Your body is in an incredibly vulnerable, a weakened state. You are exhausted beyond exhausted. It's breaking your will. That's obsession. That's oppression. Demonic obsession is when it begins to attack you on an intellectual level. You begin to hear it. It mimics schizophrenia. You clearly hear. And so what it's doing is attacking your intellect and will to the point where the individual can no longer fight. I mean, you're at a point where you're so vulnerable that this is why I always have someone who is medically trained monitoring the vitals of the possessed, because their body has gone through such trauma. Have I heard demonic obsession? No. I've been attacked before, but I've never heard the demonic obsession. I've never been there. So, oh yes, absolutely. And Starla's asking, can attacks happen when you're physically weak? Yes. Understand that demonic entities are parasites. They're cowards, but they're also opportunists. So they're going to wait at the most opportune time to attack. So when you're vulnerable, when you're sad, when you're depressed, when you're lonely, your wife leaves you, your husband leaves you, you're losing your job, you're having financial, when you're at a point when you're vulnerable, and let's say that you investigated a location that's demonic, you're like, come on, I dare you to do something. I dare you to do something. They're not going to do anything right there. Oh, they may make a noise or two, but they're going to wait because you've given the invitation. And now 30 years down the road, when you're at a vulnerable state, that's when they remind you of that invitation that you gave them. And that's when the attacks begin. So they're opportunists. They wait and they wait. So this is why when you got to be very careful about taking these cases, because these cases have long-term consequences. And that's important to understand. Oh yeah, I've had incubus and succubus cases before, and they are very violent. There are individuals that will purposely do rituals to try to get an incubus and succubus attached to them because they think it would be pleasurable. These people are fools. Fools. Unbelievably fools. I'm going to let everybody chat for a little bit. I'm going to turn on chat for everybody. Be kind. If you're not going to be kind, then I'm just going to turn chat right back off only to subscribers. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter to me. But I'd rather everybody have the opportunity to chat. So if you can't be kind, TikTok, I'll put it right back on. Incubus and succubus cases are very violent. And the problem is I would like to do a presentation on them, but the issue is because of TikTok's rules, etc. Do you really believe a demonic possession? Do I really believe? No, I don't. I don't believe. I know. I have performed 33 exorcisms on people who have been validly possessed. I work with psychologists that administer psychological evaluations. I have seen a form of levitation. I have seen the eyes go completely solid black. Or if I say like Our Father in Aramaic, it says it in backwards. So I'll be Abun Nabas Maya Makada Shamuk. And then it will say Our Father backwards is in a form of Aramaic as a mockery. So I've seen these things. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. So it's not a matter of believe. I know. And please let me explain this. I want to make this very clear. And I always remind people of this, not because braggadocious, because I need to explain. As a bishop in the Old Catholic Church, we don't receive a stipend. We don't receive a salary. We don't receive income at all from the church. We receive no housing allowance, food allowance. We receive nothing, zero, zilch, no financial, nothing. I don't charge. I've never charged in 25 years. I performed 33 exorcisms and thousands of home blessings, and I have never charged one penny. 23 years I've been doing this on my own, putting $15,000 in debt on my credit card to get to people's homes. So and I tell you this, and I have a doctorate in ministry and 3 master degrees from regionally accredited universities. I was a dean of a college. I tell you this because if I did not know that possession exists, I would do something else with my time and my money. I certainly wouldn't go $15,000 in debt to help people if I had a doubt. So I tell you this not because it's a braggadocious moment. I tell you this because I have seen, I've witnessed this, and it's not a matter of do I believe, it's do I know without question. Without question, possession exists. And I tell you, because there's no ulterior motive. Because if I was charging $5,000 for an exorcism, you could say, aha, that's why you're doing it. Or if I was getting a salary from the church, $100,000 a year salary, you could say, well, that's why you're doing it. But I don't receive a salary. Or you're doing this for fame. For fame, you do things for fame so you can make money. If you don't charge, you're not going to make any money. You don't have to be Einstein to figure that out. So there's no ulterior motive other than to help people. I am not here to prove to you that demons exist. I am here to help the families who know they do. And I cannot tell you how many times trolls and nasty people have said some of the most horrible things to me. And then 5 years later, they contact me and they say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done what I did. We moved into the house, we got some activity, and we're terrified. Now all of a sudden you need my help. 5 years ago, you were attacking me. But the difference between them and me is I help them. So for those of you who are watching this on all the other social media platforms, TikTok, I'm going to stay with you guys for a little bit longer. I want to remind everybody, don't forget, we have night prayer coming up at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join us. Also, we have Mass at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TikTok, TikTok only. And then Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our Bible study. And that's everywhere as well. So please join us. But tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have night prayer. So TikTok, I'll be with you guys in a moment. Everyone else, remember, I tell you, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. You are priceless. And don't let any troll tell you or convince you otherwise. Good night.